Yeah, you can start.
Okay.
Jai Baba.
Okay.
Jai Baba.
Universal prayer. Jai Baba. Universal prayer. O Parvardigar, the preserver and protector of all, you are without beginning, without end, non-dual, beyond comparison, and none can measure you. You are without color, without expression, without form, and without attributes. You are unlimited and unfathomable, beyond imagination and conception, eternal and imperishable. You are indivisible, and none can see you but with eyes divine. You always were, you always are, and you always will be. You are everywhere, you are in everything, and you are also beyond everywhere and beyond everything. You are in the firmament and in the depths. You are manifest and unmanifest on all planes and beyond all planes. You are in the three worlds and also beyond the three worlds. You are imperceptible and independent. You are the creator, the Lord of Lords, the knower of all minds and hearts. You are omnipotent and omnipresent. Your knowledge infinite, power infinite, and bliss infinite. You are the ocean of knowledge, all knowing, infinitely knowing, the knower of the past, the present, and the future, and you are knowledge itself. You are all merciful and eternally benevolent. You are the soul of souls, the one with infinite attributes. You are the trinity of truth, knowledge, and bliss. You are the source of truth, the ocean of love. You are the ancient one, the highest of the high. You are Prabhu and Parameshwar. You are the beyond God and beyond God also. You are Parabrahma, Allah, Ilahi, Yasdan, Ahura Mazdan, God the Beloved. You are named Izad, the only one worthy of worship. The prayer of repentance given by Meher Baba in 1952. This prayer was dictated by Meher Baba. Okay, 1952. We repent, O God, most merciful, for all our sins, for every thought that was false or unjust or unclean, for every word spoken that ought not to have been spoken, for every deed done that ought not to have been done. We repent for every deed and word and thought inspired by selfishness, and for every deed and word and thought inspired by hatred. We repent especially for every lustful thought and every lustful action, for every lie, for all hypocrisy, for every promise given but not fulfilled, and for all slander and backbiting. Most especially also, we repent for every action that brought ruins to others, for every word and deed that has given others pain, and for every wish that pain should befall others. In your unbounded mercy, we ask you to forgive us, O God, for all these sins committed by us, and to forgive us for our constant failures to think and speak and act according to your will. Prayer for Baba's lovers and Mandali. Beloved God, help us all to love you more and more and more and more and still yet more until we become worthy of union with you, and help us all to hold fast to Baba's Daman till the very end. Help us all to hold fast to Baba's Daman till the very end. Avatar Meher Baba ki jai.
Avatar Meher Baba ki jai. Thank you, Mamaji. So today we are reading the Condition of Happiness Part 2. I'll help do the reading. So I'll start from first para, contentment free from self-created problems. Most of man's suffering is self-created through his ungoverned desires and impossible demands. All this is unnecessary for self-fulfillment. If man becomes desireless and contented, he will be free from his self-inflicted suffering. His imagination will not be constantly harassed by feverish reaching out towards things that really do not matter, and he will be established in unassailable peace. When an individual is thus contented, he does not require any solution to problems because the problems that confront worldly persons have disappeared. He has no problems, therefore he does not have to worry about their solution. For him, the complexities of life do not exist because his life becomes utterly simple in the state of desirelessness. When a person understands a suffering of renunciation, when a person understands desires as being merely the bondage of the spirit, he decides to give them up, but even when voluntary, this is often a painful process. The suffering that comes from pursuing the mind of many desires exists even when the soul may be ready to renounce them because this decision of soul goes counter to the inclination of the ego mind to persist through its habitual desires. Renunciation of desires curtails the very life of the ego mind. Therefore, it is a process invariably accompanied by acute suffering. But such suffering is wholesome for the soul because it liberates the soul from bondage. Analogies. Not all suffering is bad. When suffering leads to the external happiness of desirelessness, it should be regarded as a blessing in disguise. Just as a patient may have to suffer an operation at the hands of a surgeon in order to free himself of persistent and malignant pain, the soul has to welcome the suffering of renouncing desires in order to be free from recurrent and unending suffering caused by them. The suffering the soul has in renouncing desires may be very acute, but it is endured because of a sense of greater freedom that comes when desires gradually disappear from the mind. If an infected swelling on the body is opened and allowed to drain, it gives much pain but also much relief. Similarly, the suffering from renunciation of desires is accompanied by the compensating relief of progressive initiation into limitless life of freedom and happiness. True nature of suffering. The simple life of freedom and happiness is one of the most difficult things to achieve. Man has complicated his life by the growth of artificial and imaginary desires, and returning to simplicity amounts to the renunciation of desires. Desires have become an essential part of limited self of man, with the result that he is reluctant to abandon them unless the lesson that desires are born of ignorance is impressed upon his mind through acute mental suffering. When an individual is confronted with great suffering through his desires, he understands their true nature. When such suffering comes, it should be welcomed. Suffering may come in order to eliminate further suffering. A thorn may be taken out by another thorn, and suffering by suffering. Suffering has to come when it is of use in purging the soul of its desires. It is then as necessary as a medicine to a sick person. Suffering caused by dissatisfaction. However, 99% of human suffering is not necessary. Through obstinate ignorance, people inflict suffering upon themselves and their fellow beings, and then, strangely enough, they ask, why should we suffer? Suffering is often symbolized by scenes of war, devastated houses, broken and bleeding limbs, the agonies of torture and death. But the war does not embody any special suffering. People really suffer all the time. They suffer because they are not satisfied. They want more and more. More is more an outcome of the universal suffering of dissatisfaction than an embodiment of representative suffering. Through their greed, vanity, and cruelty, people bring untold suffering upon themselves and others. Selfish pursuit of happiness. People are not content to create suffering only for themselves, but are relentlessly zealous in creating suffering for their fellow beings. Everyone seeks his own happiness, even at the cost of happiness of others, thus giving rise to cruelty and unending wars. As long as he thinks only of his own happiness, he does not find it. In the pursuit of his own individual happiness, the limited self becomes accentuated and burdensome. When someone is merely selfish, he can, in the false pursuit of separate and exclusive happiness, become utterly callous and cruel to others. But this recoils upon him by poisoning the very spirit of his life. Loveless life is most unlovely. Only a life of love is worth living.
Sunil, can we
Yeah.
stop here for this?
Please, yeah.
Some
I
discussion?
was thinking about that as well. Yeah.
Yeah. The sentence that strikes me is this: what is more an outcome of the universal suffering of dissatisfaction than an embodiment of representative suffering? Through their greed, vanity, and cruelty, people bring untold suffering upon themselves and others. That needs to be addressed. I think we are going through that, and we need to get out of this. And yeah, we need to pay some attention to this.
Yes.
Vanity. What is greed? What is vanity? What is cruelty? These are the things. Some of us may not have this. Some of us may have this, but we all have this. Our mind has this. But how do we may not express it. How do we get over this? That's something we have to think about it.
Yes, certainly. And I think we all have it with the varied degrees uh, of intensity. I would talk for myself. I think all the, you know, these factors of greed, vanity, cruelty, uh, with varied situations, varied levels of intensity, uh, out of selfishness are there. It may be a bit better than a person who murders somebody out of cruelty, but I'm not a saint as well. I'm a non-vegetarian person, so it's just how you look at it. I think the whole idea is to move from selfishness to a selflessness kind of situation.
Yeah.
And that's a journey for all of us, progressive journey, constant journey.
Yeah.
Now, I had, sorry, go ahead. Please, yeah, go ahead. Yeah, I'll come later.
Yeah. Let's address greed. For example, greed. We want to possess everything. We want to have more than what we need.
Yes.
If you look at the animals, if they're hungry, they hunt, right? Some of these lions and all these things, they hunt. And when they eat, they're satisfied, they don't hunt anymore. Even though the deer is next to them, they don't eat. They're just happy with them. They don't have any greed.
Right.
And but whereas we have the mind and it's fully developed and we want to extend it. That's the problem we have. We want to have something that's sufficient for us and we want to have it more.
Absolutely.
That's the problem for the greed.
Yes.
Yeah.
And that's what's happening all over the world. You look at, I lived in Bangalore for 4 years, and Bangalore has a lot of problem of garbage. You look at how much of disposal comes out of every household in Bangalore. In developed cities like Singapore, I'm sure there's 5 times or 10 times of garbage coming out of each house, but you don't see it, so you don't know what's happening. But in Bangalore, because the disposal is not so well organized, people dump it on the roadsides, and you see how much unbelievable amount of garbage that comes out. And this was not a situation when we were growing up. Just about 50 years ago, 40 years ago, there was hardly any disposals that used to come out of house. And now we have so much more. Everybody wants more clothing, more food, more things, 2 of each, 4 of each. Used to have, people wouldn't have cars. Now everybody has 2, 3 cars outside their houses. 1 is not enough. Two is not enough. 3. And that's greed, and nothing satisfies anybody in the end. Houses are full of things. Wardrobes are full of clothes. You have multiple shoes. When I grew up, one leather shoe was very hard to get. Used to, until it would, completely torn, and father wouldn't buy another one. My pants used to be recycled. Now there's no doubt of clothes. Clothes is not even in discussion. So that's what's happening to the whole world, I guess. Greed, and unending cycle.
Sunil, did you ever tell these stories to your children?
I do, but it's very hard for them also. They spend limited amount of time with me.
Yeah.
They know it, but it doesn't sink in because, they're
not experiencing it.
Yeah, they are spending a lot of time with friends and so on. So I used to, honestly, when I talk to them, I think of my conversations with my father. My father used to tell me all his stories of his growing up. He had only 1 pair of pajamas and blah, blah, blah. He used to study in candlelight. And I used to tell him, Papa, time's up. I don't want to listen to it. Dad, forget it. Don't tell me all these stories. We are in a different world. My kids think the same, right?
Yeah.
So you can't blame them. They are grown up in a different environment. They have no idea of how those times were. It's like a story to them. So this is the reality.
Yeah.
Maybe Baba has another solution for them. Baba had a solution for us. He put us into this reading for last 2 years. For next generation, he'll have another solution. I will leave it to Baba to handle that.
Yeah.
And I had a question on the previous para while I was reading. True nature of suffering. When an individual is confronted with great suffering through his desires, he understands their true nature. But when such a suffering comes, it should be welcomed. So, is it necessary that we have to be confronted with great suffering, and then only we know the true nature of, the selfishness or desires, or you can also know through such reading?
Yeah. I understand your question. If I may answer, if anybody
Sure,
else
please.
wants to come up, I would, warrant is to stay back. But yeah. See, we only understand the present life, right? We don't understand. We don't have a bigger picture. Unfortunately, we are limited. We're only thinking about now. If we suffer something like at one time, we can remember that. But we had a lot of happy moments, and we don't remember that. We had so many, we don't remember that. But unfortunately, when you are happy, you don't use your mind. That is the truth. You're happy. somebody call you, they provide you drinks and good food. How is your mind state at that time? You have drinks and you are in a la la land and you have food and you're not using your full-fledged mind. Whereas if you are going through some suffering, you always have a question: why am I suffering? Do I have to go through that? Then your mind is in full-fledged action. I want to get rid of this suffering, because you don't accept it. We don't accept it. So your mind is acting, and again, depends upon your sanskaras. You evaluate your situation, and then you're fortunate to come across Baba's philosophy, and you understand. We understand that suffering is good. I mean, that's a very good thing. We are very fortunate to be like that. Then we evaluate, and then when your mind is working, you can really experience what you are going through this, and you can understand better. So suffering gives you a lot more understanding compared to being happy. Now let's look at a bigger picture. Your life is not this just life. Your life is many, many lives in the past. We may not remember this, and you have to understand we have had many lives before, and we don't know what we have gone through, what we have gone through, what we have gone through. So we may have to go through that now, or we may not have to go through that now. So it all depends upon our perspective.
Yeah, my question was the whole idea of reading the books, Baba books, for example. This one should be that we through knowledge we reduce our selfishness, we become more selfless, so that we don't have to go through the path of suffering or great suffering to know the true nature of desires. If we are reading it, if we still don't understand and we still behave as the very selfish people, then some amount of reading and understanding Baba's teachings is lost. We should take a path of lower resistance. Please correct me if I'm wrong.
So Sunil, if I may
Yeah.
add, Jai Baba, Sunil.
Jai
See,
Baba, please.
I think this reading is, of course, a very good light in the journey. But I think more important is how we can inculcate. So I think we had
Absolutely.
one session where I think Karthik had motivated us that for 1 week we should not backbite. I said not 1 week, we should make it 52 weeks. We should try not to backbite. So there are a lot of pearls of wisdom and practical, practical suggestions which Baba has given. We inculcate even one or two of them and try to make an initiative and an attempt to not fall into the trap of Maya and
Yes.
and reduce suffering. And I think I was also going through the chapter on Maya. So the soul is untouched. It's only our this usually our gross, subtle, and mental body which falls into this trap of Maya and suffering. So it's an attempt which you have to do. I mean, you have to do. You know take the step, and the first step, and it's difficult. It's very difficult. Even the simple thing of keeping silent is difficult. So I think Baba has given a lot of things we can follow that. If we follow that, we will be on the path.
Absolutely. That's what I was saying, Ashokji. We don't need to go through great suffering and then realize the true nature of desires. We already are learning from this book.
Yes.
So we can, we are caught up in this maze of running around, trying to make more and more money, and in the end, we leave everything here. So if we know this, then why are we doing it?
That's the trap. That's the
Right.
principle of Maya. So dil mange more.
They'll mange more. And अभी मुझे कामा की याद आ रही है. He's sitting in Coimbatore and he's doing all the Baba work. He left his Wall Street job. So, Kama, salute to you. I want to be your Sela.
Absolutely. I wanted to read the first two lines of the part of analogies. Can you just read?
Analogies.
Sorry, if you want, I read it.
Yeah. Yeah, go ahead. Feel free. Yeah, I
No,
can.
not all suffering is bad. When suffering leads to the eternal happiness of desirelessness, it should be regarded as a blessing in disguise. I think there is a, thing here that sometimes there is one suffering which comes to reduce some other suffering. So it's all, it's all again depends from person to person and your level of sanskaras. So I think this is also quite profound.
Jawabad. Thank you. Thanks, Ashokji.
But I think we should be open for suffering.
Yes.
We should not resist any suffering. If the suffering comes, we are ready to take it up.
Absolutely.
Because if you are not ready to take it up, it depends upon our sanskaras. It can turn into anger, and that's not good for us.
True.
Why am I going through this suffering? So we have to be careful when the suffering comes. Until you get the suffering, you really do not know what it is like. Because no matter how much we sit here and talk about it, it doesn't mean anything until you are in that situation.
Also, I agree, Raviji. Yeah. Suffering will come in some way or the other. It will come for people like us. We are long way away from reaching desirelessness.
Yeah. I'll tell you one of the situation what I came across. I was, very happy life, doing excellent exercise, running 6 miles in an hour, 3 to 4 times a day, and a week. And I'm a vegetarian, and all the stuff going on, right? No sweets, not eating sweets, leading a healthy, happy life. And I want to visit my brothers and sisters who are getting old. So I went to India around that September time. I usually go through usual physician check, and physicians always tell me, "Hey, you're a runner. You're like a sportsman. You're, they use the stethoscope to test me and tell me, hey, you are like a sportsman. Don't worry about anything. Just eat whatever you want. Okay." And then I go to India, and my wife always afraid of something. She called, all my family are they have their own physicians. They are cardiologists and all these people. My nephew is a cardiologist. So she wrote an email. Around September, Ravi gets this check. He didn't get through. And my nephew took it very serious. He thought I have something wrong with me. He took me. He tested every test, everything. I fared very well, excellent. Okay, then finally, I went through the treadmill test. They really raised the height of the treadmill, and I had to walk very fast. And the girl who was doing it, she opened her mouth. I didn't understand. She said, "Sir, please step down and sit down and lie down on the bed." And she ran outside, called my nephew. He he came and he looked at that printout, and he opened his mouth too. And then he said something to that girl, and the girl immediately took the drawer out, and she opened some, the sorbitol, nitrous, whatever it is. She immediately took a pill and asked me to open my mouth, and she kept that under my tongue. And then she said, "Sir, please lie down and take rest." And my nephew immediately took his phone, called my other nephew. He just wants to confirm with another physician. He's also a physician. The other nephew came running. And they both came. They were talking something which I didn't understand, whispering. And they did not tell me anything. They called that another physician, and that physician came, who is not our family, came and said, "Sir, something is wrong with our machine. But anyway, to rule out, we want to do a radiological test tomorrow morning. Then we'll be able to tell you if everything is wrong or if something is wrong or whatever it is." And then next day morning I went, and I had 4 blocks.
Oh my God.
Unbelievable. 4 arteries were blocked. My mare anterior descending artery, that's called widowmaker, is completely 100% blocked.
Oops.
Hey, what
Now,
is the point here? Please don't keep rambling. Get to the point, please. Jai
who
Baba.
is this? Who is this?
JK.
Who is JK? I don't understand. Who is? Are you a member of this thing? Okay. Anyway,
Let's go ahead. Yeah. Let's go ahead. Yeah.
is it comma?
Jai
Is
Baba.
it comma?
Jai Baba.
Oh my God, comma. You're again back.
Jai
Anyway,
Baba. Jai Baba. Let's go ahead. Yeah.
okay, all right, Jai Baba. Uh,
So, Sunilji, one suggestion.
I'm talking about suffering, okay? And sorry, I deviated, but I suffered a lot. I didn't understand the situation. I thought I am the perfect guy, running and eating good food, and I was meditating, everything. Then why am I going through this? All these doctors are believing. And next day, when I found out these 4 blocks, and they said next day they had to do surgery for me. And I was like surprised. One day I suffered, and that suffering, I dedicated myself, Baba, you are the one who is going to take me and do whatever I need to do, whatever needs to be done. And then next day I had surgery, everything went very well. And the support I had was so enjoyable. I was going through suffering, but everything was very, very enjoyable because all my family were there to give me support and all. So the point I would like to make, Kama, is when you are suffering, when you bring in the divine into here, the suffering becomes very enjoyable. That is the point. I'm sorry, I kind of extended the whole thing to waste your time, but the suffering can be enjoyable. We don't need to worry about suffering is bad and enjoyable is good. We don't have to worry about that. As long as you bring in Baba here, the suffering can be very enjoyable. That's what I want to bring it up.
Yeah. Jai
Jai
Baba.
Baba.
Thank you. Thank you, Raviji. Ashok, you were saying something?
Sunilji, I just have a suggestion. Let's finish the
Yeah.
chapter and then we'll take the questions at the end.
All right.
So that we have the essence of the chapter. Thank you.
Okay, we could do that. Yeah, it's not a very long chapter. Yeah, so I'll go right to the end now.
Yeah.
And
Thank
please reserve the questions, if any, or comments, if any. Happiness through self-forgetful love. If an individual is desireless, he will not only eliminate much suffering that he causes others, but also much of his own self-created suffering. Mere desirelessness, however, cannot yield positive happiness, though it protects one from self-created suffering and goes a long way towards making true happiness possible. True happiness begins when one learns the art of right adjustment to other persons, and the right adjustment involves self-forgetfulness and love. Hence arises the spiritual importance of transforming a life of the limited self into a life of love. Selfless love is rare. Pure love is rare because in most cases, love becomes adulterated with selfish motives, which are surreptitiously introduced into consciousness by operation of accumulated bad sanskaras. It is extremely difficult to purge the consciousness of the deep-rooted ignorance that expresses itself through the idea of I and mine. For example, even when a person says he loves his beloved, he often only means that he possessively wants the beloved to be with him. The feeling of I and mine is notably present even in the expression of love. If a man sees his own son wearing tattered clothes, he does all that he can to give him good clothes and is anxious to see him happy. Under these circumstances, he would consider his own feeling towards his son as that of pure love. But in his quick response to the distress of his son, the part played by the idea of mine is by no means inconsiderable. If he happened to see the son of some stranger on the street wearing tattered clothes, he would not respond as he had in the case of his own son. This shows that though he may not be fully conscious of it, his behavior towards his son was in fact largely selfish. The feeling of mine is there in the background of the mind, though it can be brought to the surface only through searching analysis. In his response to the son of a stranger, if his response to the son of a stranger is the same as his own son, then only can he be said to have pure and selfless love. Domain of pure love. Pure love is not a thing that can be forced upon someone, nor can it be snatched away from another by force. It has to manifest from within with unfettered spontaneity. What can be achieved through bold decision is the removal of those factors that prevent the manifestation of pure love. The achievement of selflessness may be said to be both difficult and easy. It is difficult for those who have not decided to step out of limited self, and it is easy for those who have so decided. In the absence of firm determination, attachments connected with the limited self are too strong to break through. But if a person resolves to set aside selfishness at any cost, he finds an easy entry into domain of pure love. Need for bold decision. A limited self is like an external coat worn by the soul. Just as an individual may take off his coat by the exercise of will, through a bold, decisive step, he can make up his mind to shed the limited self and get rid of it once for all. The task that otherwise would be difficult becomes easy through the exercise of a bold and unyielding decision. Such a decision can be born in his mind only when he feels an intense longing of pure love. Just as someone who is hungry longs for food, an aspirant who wants to experience pure love must have an intense longing for it. When the true love awakened only by master. When the aspirant has developed this intense longing for pure love, he may be said to have been prepared for the intervention of a perfect master who, through proper direction and necessary help, ushers him into the state of divine love. Only the master can awaken pure love through the divine love that he imparts. There is no other way. Very, very clear. There's no other way. Those who want to be consumed in love should go the eternal flame of love. Should go to the eternal flame of love. Love is the most significant thing in life. It cannot be awakened except by coming into contact with the incarnation of love. Theoretical brooding on love will result in weaving a theory about love, but the heart will remain as empty as before. Love begets love. It cannot be awakened by any mechanical means. Love leads to God realization. When true love is awakened in aspirant, it leads him to the realization of God and opens up the unlimited field of lasting and unfading happiness. The happiness of God realization is the goal of all creation. It is not possible for a person to have the slightest idea of that inexpressible happiness without actually having the experience of Godhood. The idea that the worldly have of suffering or happiness is entirely limited. The real happiness that comes through realizing God is worth all the physical and mental suffering in the universe. Then all suffering is as if it had never been. Happiness of God realization. Those who are not God realized can control their minds through yoga to such an extent that nothing makes them feel pain or suffering, even if they are buried alive or thrown into boiling oil. But though the advanced yogis can brave and annul any suffering, they do not experience the happiness of realizing God. When one becomes God, everything else is zero. The happiness of God realization, therefore, cannot suffer curtailment by anything. The happiness of God realization is self-sustained, eternally fresh and unfading, boundless and indescribable. It is for this happiness that the world has sprung into existence. Jai Baba. We finished the chapter. Amma, would you like to summarize? Anybody else? Please reserve the question.
Can I request you to read the para on divine love again, please? Just a few.
Divine love, divine
No,
love.
no. Further down, closer to the.
Domain of pure love? No.
Yeah.
Okay.
No. Awakened by the master. Yeah. Sorry.
True love awakened
True
only
love.
by
Yeah,
the master.
yes. That para. When
Okay.
the. Thank you.
When the aspirant has developed this intense longing for pure love, he may be said to have been prepared for the intervention of a perfect master who, through his proper direction and necessary help, ushers him into the state of divine love. Only the master can awaken pure love through the divine love that he imparts. There is no other way. Those who want to be consumed in love should go to the eternal flame of love. Love is the most significant thing in life. It cannot be awakened except by coming into contact with the incarnation of love. Theoretical brooding on love will result in weaving a theory about love, but the heart will remain as empty as before. Love begets love. It cannot be awakened by any mechanical means. Jai Baba.
The last line is really very profound. I mean, there's no mechanical means. And I also request you to read the last two lines of the last paragraph, happiness of God realization. I think that was very, very profound.
I can read the whole para again.
If you can, please, yes.
Those who are not God realized can control their minds through yoga to such an extent that nothing makes them feel pain or suffering, even if they are buried alive or thrown into boiling oil. But though the advanced yogis can brave and annul any suffering, they do not realize and they do not experience the happiness of realizing God. When one becomes God, everything else is zero. The happiness of God realization, therefore, cannot suffer curtailment by anything. The happiness of God realization is self-sustained, eternally fresh and unfading, boundless and indescribable. It is for this happiness that the world has sprung into existence. Jai Baba.
Jai Baba.
Amma, Karthik, did you want to elaborate on that divine love? Or do you have any thoughts about it before we ask Amma to summarize?
I just wanted to be reminded that we need Baba in our lives, and there's no other way of getting divine love.
Karthik, I was reminded that he's already guiding us. He's ushering us into the state of divine
so
love.
I just wanted to read. I wanted to read that again. That's
very silently for last 2 years. He's gently kicking us, pushing us, asking us to read And that's how he's ushering us into state of divine love. We may be far away. We are bad students. I am bad student.
Yes.
But
Yes.
he's gently kicking, pushing. And I believe he's ushering us. I would like to believe that. There's no other way.
Indeed.
Absolutely, Suresh. It's a soft pedaling he's doing the last 2 years.
Baba.
Yeah, Baba.
Kama, you want to summarize, please? Help us summarize.
Can I have a word?
Yes, Mamaji, please. Yeah, go ahead.
This whole chapter, as we read through, what struck me is that if we go back in our life a few years back, when Baba was not there in our psyche or in the heart or in the mind, so how we were dealing with all the issues in life, it makes a real awareness, real awakening sort of what we are now and what we were earlier. So in that background context, what I would like to stress is the say things like desire, cruelty, need, and uh, the definitions for them were totally different from what we are feeling about those words or aspects right now. So I feel I used to tell youngsters at my say middle age that you should have desire so that you will have the aspiration and then you will have the drive to do good things or better things so that you can earn better and all that. So this is what way of logic we had. So that logic is totally different now after we have gone through all this knowledge culling because of the grace of Baba. So this is what we have to think of. So for a fresher, for a person who is not spiritually say awakened or has even looked towards spirituality, so the mundane things are totally different. So the textbook definitions are different than the spiritual textbook definitions. So that changeover is gradually coming into our life because of Baba's grace. But this has to be, say, put into practice. So when we discuss with youngsters, how we put it across is an exercise that we should be able to do so that they are also, say, opened up for a proper understanding of these things. Jai Baba.
Mamaji.
That's so wonderful, Mamaji. That's very well. You said it very well. Yeah, go ahead. I'm sorry, Sir Ashok.
Mamaji, I think what you are referring to is, the two worlds, the laws of the spiritual world and the laws of the material world. But what you really said is true. How to convey this, communicate this when everybody is in their professional pursuits.
Yeah.
Jai Baba.
Kama, you want to come in and say something or?
Yeah, Jai Baba.
Mama has
First
become J.
Yeah, first of all, I think we had changed the format of this meeting in the last couple of meetings. We had mentioned that let's try to read the chapter completely. And while reading, if any of the participants have any questions about a paragraph, they will note it down so that there is a continuity of reading the chapter, because most of you people don't have the luxury yet. Sunil said that, I have all the time to read chapter every day or whatever. But this is a time where I don't know how many people really read the chapters before or after this satsang. That's their own business. So what we all thought, not I, that we should read the chapter completely, and then each one, if paragraph by paragraph, if you're really concentrated on not doing multitasking, one could write down those questions. And at the end of the reading of the chapter, so what I would suggest right now is all of you that you're out there, the 9 participants including me, why don't we go through each paragraph if you have any questions which you have noted down, and then in the end, I will summarize, if that's okay with you guys. Jai Baba. So why don't we start with other people who have read that? Why don't you just give your comments? I mean, you don't have to really, I think it will be much more, participatory, more active, rather than just being passive and listening to the thing. But that's your choice. What I would suggest is, once you have heard the chapter, could you tell us, is there something that you would like to comment on? Or would you like to look at some specific subtitles and paragraphs and comment on it, or even have any questions? Jai Baba. So I'll wait for the people to finish, and then in the end, I can summarize. Jai Baba.
I have one observation here. This suffering coming because of the desire is welcome. That is what Baba says. And then you should go through that suffering, only then can you understand what is that desire, and then what is the benefit of being desirelessness. So this is the whole crux of what is I have picked up from here, and this is a real say ultimate difficult process in life, to become totally desireless. So that is the pinnacle, or say the jump from the sixth to seventh plane. So we have to go through gradually, or say multiple experiences in life, so that we become desirelessness. So to start with, we may reduce our desires. We may so for this, every moment of the life, we have to be aware that when there is a particular thing which is not available to you, you feel jittery, you feel awkward, and then you take a rest and then think over and see, can I not do without that particular thing? So that is how we have to gradually go through and then become desirelessness. So otherwise, it is not going to be a one-time jump to the area of total desirelessness. That is what comes to us as mortals. So we have to keep this the idea going behind your mind, so that gradually over a period of time, we will awaken to the say desirelessness phase. Jai Baba.
Mamaji, I have one question. Which particular subtopic are you paragraph are you referring to?
No, in general, for the initial aspect of the chapter, before it came to the last two pages. So it all talks about to be, say, to welcome suffering because of the desires, and then this suffering will lead you to desirelessness. So this is a long drawn process for us.
Yeah.
It's not a one-time experience. You have an acute, say, the suffering or unhappiness because of a particular desire. You may not be able to give it up so easily. So gradually, over a period of time, we keep, say, thinking about this, and then next time the same type of an affliction happens, your suffering will be lesser compared to the earlier one, if you have made your say homework on this particular aspect. So that is how you gradually become totally desirelessness.
Fake it till you make it.
Yeah.
Yes.
Mamaji, that's a very good point you raised, Mamaji. We are desires. As long as we are human beings, all we have is sanskaras. We have this body, we have this mind. All we have is these sanskaras. What are the sanskaras? We're actually living in the past. The sanskaras what we created in the past, and those sanskaras come as a desires for us. So without desires, we cannot exist. So What we need to do is we don't need to worry about desires. As long as we worry more about focusing on loving Baba, he will take care of us. And when our love increases, our desires change in their manifestation. We observe that. We can observe that. And you don't need to worry about desires. We need to focus more on our love to Baba, remembering Baba, thinking about Baba, more than anything else. If we focus on that, our desires automatically change as that needs to be changed. Jai Baba.
Sunil, I just wanted to add, especially the last paragraph where they have mentioned that we can control our minds through yoga. I think there we can also we can also use meditation, which we've had brilliant sessions from Namita ji. So I think yoga and meditation, whichever suits each one. So to the extent that nothing can make them feel pain or suffering, even yoga is a good tool. Jai Baba.
Right. Jai Baba.
But Ashok, there is one counterpoint in the last two paragraphs relating to these external practices of yoga and other things, trying to reduce your suffering. Physically, they may reduce your suffering, but the God realization aspect or the say flowering of love towards the ultimate may not be kindled so nicely by these processes. That's a different entity. That's what is portrayed in the last two paragraphs, I think.
Agreed, Mamaji. It's basically to each his own, or what different strokes for different folks. Or but anyway, what I was trying to say is that, of course, divine love and love leads to God realization. But everybody may not reach that. For the
Yes.
stages to reach that, maybe some of the tools of scaffolding could be yoga and meditation.
Yes, they have their role, but we have to be very clear about the ultimate result.
Yes, absolutely. Agreed. Jai Baba.
Jai Baba. Anybody else?
Jai Baba.
Jai Baba.
Yeah, I think since the men have been speaking all the time, I think we have Jayanti and Mamita. And I believe that Mamita can, last time she talked about, that both Sunil and Mamita lost their dad. I would love for them to talk about how these two chapters in suffering, how would it relate to their own personal experience of going through that, the passing of a beloved, excuse me. And also Jayanti, if it's okay, this is just a free forum. Jayanti also had some personal, challenges that she went through. And if it's okay with her, she can also talk about her own understanding of these two chapters on suffering and how it would relate to her own personal life experience. Jai Baba.
Jai Baba.
Yes, go ahead, Namita.
Yeah. In last 2 years, even if I have been suffering, with the loss of a dear parent or other challenges in life, it hasn't uh, affected me as much as it used to. I understand the big picture, and these 2 years I have, and also in the context of the chapter, when Baba gives you suffering, it it cleans you up, and you are in a better position to uh, understand and handle life. Previously, I used to get swayed. It was like a tide that would just push me away. When my brother-in-law passed away in 2013, I was on medication and antidepressants for 2 years. And though he's not my blood relation, I just didn't understand death, and I couldn't really take it. Now, my father, who was my dearest, and even my father-in-law, I I just see body as a, as a unit of 5 elements that Baba gives us. It's that houses our spirit, and I see it as temporary. Temporary. My heart says that there is continuity in the soul that left, and it bums me. And I also see a bigger picture for myself. When things don't go my way, or there's suffering, the child is sick, or a child doesn't do well, or something happens at home. I don't think it's a big thing. I have always, I mean, I meditate a lot. After meditation, my slate is absolutely clean, and this Baba's being in myself, which I feel, I just think these are little ripples, of time during this, and I'm also for the first time very willing to let go of my body. The attachment is not there of the things, or of this body, and this has only come through this reading and understanding, and above all, being of Baba in us. uh, I, I I don't have to make time to think about him. With this magic of how he has come to our life, he's a living being, or perhaps the only living being there is. And you feel him in everything, in disappointments, in successes, in beauty, in ugliness, in everything, and it's like a song, and that's absolute bliss. So being under Baba's fold, I know that he's like a living God. He'll send someone to convey a message to you. He'll give you a sign that okay, it's going to get better, or it's going to get better, or he'll balm your heart. He'll make it strong enough to take whatever he has thrown at you. And in absolute submission, I begin my day in his name, and I say, Baba, I thank you for this body, this breath, this this earth, the sky, the sun, the stars, the planets, the galaxies, the air we breathe, and the water we drink, the rivers, the mountains, the fish, the seas, everything, the loved ones who are in our heart, and the love we feel, which I believe is God. It's all you, Baba, and you just contained us in this little body, which is temporary, but it is important, and it is so important that we value this gift and look after it, keep it well, and keep it well in mind as well. And all these things have come together only in absolute love and submission to God. It's like that teenage romance, where there's no logic. You just submit. You feel so blissful, in his being within you, and the bigger picture is there's absolute bliss. These little ripples of things not going your way, or you're not getting what you, or something getting snatched from you. It is just it's just certain variables which everybody has to go through. So the worst thing is maybe one dies of cancer, or you get a big disease. Then you see examples. Those people also go along with their lives. Uh, Nothing is so permanent, not so ultimate. The only permanence I feel is that bliss, that joy in Baba's thought in our heart, and that even to me in this body looks like the only achievement, or the only thing one must crave for. And all this I've been able to verbalize only through Baba's grace, and it's absolute joy to be under his umbrella, to be one of the chosen ones, to be in company of all of you, who feel similar things in different degrees. And whatever the tide is, we know that we are holding each other's hand, and we know this too shall pass. And this thing comes only through submission, only through love. And this has been our grace. He has hand chosen us, picked us. Most of us have not even met each other. And we feel so united in love, you know. When a thought of any of you comes, my heart softens, you know, and I feel nice. And that can only be an implant from Baba, you know. There's no jealousy, there's no he's better than me. It's like no ripples, you know. When you throw a stone in a river, it goes down, there's a little ripple, and then it just settles down. There's a calm lake. And that is the calmness that has come to my soul through Baba's grace. And I don't know how many janams he wants me to, but if this is the state of my heart or my being, I don't mind doing 1 million janmas because I feel that bliss. And even in meditations, you know, I can see myself detached from the body. I see myself above or away, and I observe my breath. I observe these things, and that's so beautiful. It hasn't. I'm a very high energy person in this body, and many things come to my mind. I'm action oriented. I want to do this, that, and this. But having even when I'm doing that, my heart is calm. It's settled, you know. I have nowhere else to go. I'm home. I'm home in Baba. I'm home under his feet, you know. I've never seen him, you know. I feel so much solace just thinking about his slippers and about those white, nice, tender feet and that hug, which I've never felt. And I feel it so many times. These are like butterfly kisses, you know. And how on earth, you know, because in Kashmir, you know, we were not allowed to fall in love. So I haven't really experienced these feelings as a teenager because we were told that, you know, it's not the correct thing to do. I feel this at 50 plus, you know. I feel that beauty, uh, and I feel even towards my own people, you know, even towards Sunil, I feel more tender. I feel nicer, you know, I feel whole. And this has only been through Baba's presence. There's nothing else. And he's a real joy, real hope, real everything. And when you submit, you just float in this life, knowing that, okay, if it comes, if the disease comes, he will give me strength to withstand it. If failures come, he will show me the way to stand up on my feet again. If difficulties come, he'll give me strength to stand on my feet again. And so many years, he's always been providing. There's no reason. There's no way you want to question him not doing again. Why? How can we challenge the fact that he's been the provider always? You know, always. So to sum it up, I am in bliss in under Baba's umbrella, under his divine feet. I feel a speck of sand. There is nothing that belongs to me in this earth, nothing at all. And there is nothing that I value which I will not let go. I have this joy of living with my loved ones, my husband, my children, my brothers, sisters like you. And even if there are challenges in relationships, you know, maybe those are also meant to clean you up and teach you something. So, in His will and in His divine mercy, I just submit. And I think that's also a big gift He has given to me of desirelessness to question Him, to be in absolute submission of His being, and for to be in absolute bliss in this moment, and really wanting to listen to His words, anecdotes from other people. It's like butter on a toast, you know. It's like so smooth and beautiful. Jai Baba, that's all from me.
Jai Baba, Jayanti, would you like to say something?
I am definitely not like Namita. Uh, I haven't gone to that extent of heart by virtue or by training, I think I'm more of a brain-related person, so more logical. Uh, but the experience that I have got after going through uh, the books and the readings and listening to others' experiences, I can definitely say I feel very, very strongly that I am guided by Baba. Uh, there is much more clarity in my mind and my behavior. I'm much more calmer and serene, and nothing affects me. I also used to be a very action oriented, checklist oriented kind of a personality. That has gone actually. I'm not even like, I used to get up with a checklist in my mind and I used to tick everything kind of a thing. Today, I think in the last few months, I don't remember me writing a checklist also. But things are done in its own pace. I used to have this. Anxiety in terms of completing things, going fast, and being very competitive. I feel much more relaxed and being content. I don't want to get into one more birth and going through this. I definitely want to get the grace and willing for it. The strong uh, attachment that I got on this body and in this life is only because I want to achieve what Baba is saying, the ultimate in this birth through Baba. So I would rather say that not like Namita, that I don't have an attachment. I developed the attachment in the last 1 year to this body and the body awareness, basically because I want to experience it, whatever I'm reading in this book, actually in this birth itself. So that's a change that I have seen in myself in the last 1.5 years, or 1.5 years to be precise, that I am reading the books and I'm following it. That's a change that I have done, and I am still not there in terms of completely blessed and drenched in the love of Baba, but I am there somewhere.
Jai Baba. Thank you, Jayanti and Nomita.
Jai Baba.
Vinit?
Khalid ji, long time. A few words from Khalid.
Jai Baba, everybody. Good to be
Jai
back.
Baba.
Baba.
Love you.
Jai Baba.
Hi Khalid, Jai Baba.
Happy to have you
Jai
back.
Baba.
Happy to hear you. Say
Yeah,
something.
so feeling so happy to see all of you and hear your voices. And I really missed all these, weekends. And even today I'm traveling, but then I was able to get through. And I really look forward to attending all the weekends, here and after. Jai Baba to all. Jai Baba.
Jai
Jai
Baba.
Baba.
Jai Baba.
Jai Baba. Hope to have you every weekend. Yeah. Jai Baba. Hama, over to
Anybody
you.
else any queries on any of the paragraphs that we have read in Conditions of Happiness Part 1 or Part 2? Anybody else? Okay. So I'll just try to summarize what we have read, and based on our discussion and some of the queries. These two chapters, Conditions of Happiness, Part 1 dealt with overcoming of suffering through detachment. I think that was the topic that we were discussing right now in this Part 2, which is about contentment, love, and God realization. So the last couple of paragraphs of this Part 2, God realization was mentioned, and that one of the most beautiful lines I've read here is, only the master can awaken pure love through the divine love that he imparts. There is no other way. Those who want to be consumed in love should go to the eternal flame of love. Love is the most significant thing in life. It cannot be awakened except by coming into contact with the incarnation of love. Theoretical brooding on love will result in weaving a theory about love, but the heart will remain as empty as before. This is page 398. Love begets love. Love cannot be awakened by any mechanical means. So this is a clear indication that we are all very privileged, first of all, to be under Baba's umbrella, Baba's Daman, because he is the incarnation of love. And we also have read in the chapter on love that, page 113 to 114, where Baba says, infatuation, lust, greed constitute a spiritual malady, which is often rendered more virulent by the aggravating symptoms of anger and jealousy. This is page number 113, last paragraph, and we will go to the next page, 114. The whole page, we have read that previously, but this is something that needs to be reinforced. We know that lust, greed, and anger relates with gross, subtle, lust, greed, anger. So lust is towards the gross body, greed of the subtle body, and anger of the mental body. So Baba said, convert lust into love, greed into generosity, and anger into compassion and tolerance. There's another thing he has introduced, infatuation and jealousy, which will come again. Those are 5 variables. Then we have the 7 deadly sins, where for me, I have included the word worry and fear. Pure love, in sharp contradistinction, is the bloom of spiritual perfection. Human love is so tethered by these limiting conditions that the spontaneous appearance of pure love from within becomes impossible. So when such pure love arises in the aspirant, it is always a gift. Pure love arises in the heart of the aspirant in response to the descent of grace from a perfect master. When pure love is first received as a gift of the master, pure love becomes lodged in the consciousness of the aspirant like a seed in favorable soil. And in the course of time, the seed develops into a plant and then into a full-grown tree. So the subtitle, Pure Love Awakened Through Grace. Now, this is a very, very important and subtle statement. Now, do we have pure love? That is an interesting question that we can all ask ourselves. We have human love, we know that. So the next paragraph, spiritual preparation for grace. The descent of the grace of the master is conditioned, however, by the preliminary spiritual preparation of the aspirant. This preliminary preparation for grace is never complete until the aspirant has built into his spiritual makeup some divine attributes. For example, when a person avoids backbiting and thinks more of the good points in others than of their bad points, and when he can practice supreme tolerance and desires good for others, even at cost to himself, he is ready to receive the grace of the master. One of the greatest obstacles hindering the spiritual preparation of the aspirant is worry. When with supreme effort, this obstacle of worry is overcome, a way is paved for the cultivation of the divine attributes that constitute the spiritual preparation of the disciple. As soon as the disciple is ready, the grace of the master descends. For the master, who is the ocean of divine love, is always on the lookout for the soul in whom his grace will fructify. So the kind of love that is awakened by the grace of the master is a rare privilege. And he has talked about the mother willing to sacrifice for a child, and also the martyr who's prepared to give up his life for the country. These are supremely noble, but they have not necessarily tasted this pure love born through the grace of the master. Even the great yogis who sit in caves and on mountain tops and are completely absorbed in deep samadhi do not necessarily have this precious love. Pure love awakened through the grace of the master is more valuable than any other stimulus that may be utilized by the aspirant. So from the discussion, what Nomita has said, I was looking at her own life experience. She has been born, she was, because she's married to Sunil, she was brought up in a Baba family. But I guess she said about only 4 to 5 years ago that grace descended about connecting with Baba. That's a clear example. Then Jayanti, who basically started off 2 years ago through Vidya, and she's also been reading very diligently and participating, and she has gone through her own life challenges, and we have heard from her own understanding of how the readings of discourses has helped her in her own personal life challenges. Doc Mama is another person, individual or spiritual aspirant who has gone through the Ramakrishna mission, and through the medium of Karthik, he is now totally dived into Baba. So these are real examples where the grace of Baba descends on the spiritual aspirant when they are ready. And the interesting thing out here is that happiness of God realization is the goal of all creation. This is a statement made in page 398. Love leads to God realization. We all know that love is the best form of medium because it's not very complicated. You have to surrender. And what does it mean? I think suffering, physical or mental suffering, when one is undergoing that, whether within ourselves or with our near and dear ones, because both ways you physically, mentally suffer. And in the last chapter, part 1, Baba has said that humanity is subject to much suffering, physical and mental. Of these two, mental suffering is the more acute. Those with limited vision think that suffering can only be physical. Their idea of suffering is some kind of illness or torture of the body. Mental suffering is worse than physical suffering. Physical suffering sometimes comes as a blessing because it serves the purpose of easing mental suffering by weaning away one's attention from the mental suffering. It is not right to make much of purely physical suffering. Physical suffering can be borne through the exercise of willpower and endurance. The true suffering that counts is mental. The state of complete desirelessness is latent in everyone. And when through complete detachment, one reaches the state of wanting nothing, one taps the unfailing inner source of eternal and unfading happiness, which is not based upon the objects of the world, but is sustained by self-knowledge and self-realization. So in a way, Baba is giving us self-knowledge by reading God Speaks and Discourses, because then we are able to really understand our own life experiences and others' life experiences. Yes, everybody is bound by sanskaras. Why are some people suffering physically or mentally or both? And we understand that the root cause is sanskaras. In fact, physical suffering, when somebody gets cancer or something, which happened to my mom, I used to think, why does it happen to her? Like, she's not, she doesn't have any habits, bad habits. But from our reading, we understand that physical suffering is a form of cleansing of sanskaras. So, in a way, if we are able to, first of all, understand the Baba literature, the Baba framework, and then apply it to our daily life, especially when we are going through pain, then life becomes much more easier to handle. As Baba said, I can't change your destiny, but I can give you inner strength. So in that aspect, the three kinds of detachment, Shamshan, Vairagya, cremation or burial ground detachment, we know that gives us a very temporary 1 hour, 2 hour or 1 day, 1 week kind of detachment. Then you have the Tivra Vairagya or intense dispassion, which is basically what Baba says, sometimes the mood of detachment is more lasting and not only endures for a considerable time, but also seriously modifies one's general attitude toward life. Tivra Vairagya happens due to some great misfortune, such as the loss of one's own dear ones or the loss of property or reputation. Tivra Vairagya of this type has its own spiritual value, but also likely to disappear in the course of time or be disturbed by the onset of a recurring flood of worldly desires. So one has to be constantly alert that is my detachment constant, continuous, or it has its own ups and downs. The disgust for the world that a person feels in such cases is due to a powerful impression left by a misfortune, and it does not endure because it is not born of understanding. It is only a severe reaction to life, unintelligent action. If we don't understand the concept of sanskaras, which most people, most people in the world are not even aware of, it will become the most important Sanskrit word in the English language, I believe. Buddha has talked about 2,500 years ago, and the first postulate he said that suffering is the universal truth. Second, the three causes of suffering, desire or craving, aversion or hatred, and ignorance are the three causes of suffering. And because of ignorance, which is Maya, which is falsehood, the creator of illusion, we are caught up in craving and the opposite of craving, that is, not craving or hatred. And the third postulate is said we are all walking Buddhas, which Baba said, you and I are not we but one. I am God conscious, you are in the process. Because we know that from God speaks, Baba is the first drop soul, just like one of us, but he was the first individual drop soul, Atma, who won the lottery of self-realization and was destined or was made to become chairman emeritus, avatar, who has to come every 700 to 1400 years and redeem humanity because it is a divine game. And Baba has said in the new life, sometimes when he talked about the different aspects of the new life, the theory-free life and, which I don't remember, but he said, this is God's plan. He himself became an individual human being, just like one of us during the new life, to show us that, hey, I went through the same thing that you're going through. And he had to show us through his own personal experience what an individual goes through. So that is why the phrase, we are all walking Buddhas, is great. Yes, we love our parents when we are growing up. And Baba, we know that in our Hindu literature, we should love our parents. They are like gods. I used to understand what does that mean. Today I had this insight. I was trying to figure out what is the difference between parents and Avatar, Baba, Perfect Master. The only difference is that your parents bring you up and they shower you with love in this lifetime. Whereas if you have the grace of a perfect master or the avatar, he is your universal father, mother. Baba is also your mother because there's no duality in it. And he'll take care of us. So, of course, when we grow up, we detach from our parents in the sense that you're not going to be a mama's boy all the time. You had to get out from their umbrella, be your own person, and love everybody else. So the kind of detachment that really lasts is due to the understanding of suffering at its cause. So this is very important line that basically everybody wants to have happiness and freedom, spiritual freedom and material freedom, the Maslow's hierarchy. And somebody should mute, please. So the complete detachment, which is Purna Vairagya, comes through understanding of suffering by reading Baba's literature, which we now know intellectually, but needs to be practiced, as Ashok was saying, 1% inspiration, 99% perspiration. So I will just summarize this with a reading that I read in read in Love Alone Prevails, A Story of Life with Meher Baba Kitty Davis. I was reading today page number 683. And this was about Kitty Devi talking about many aspects of the spiritual path seem much clearer when we understand the concept of the word consciousness. And one of the things that Baba said is that here she is quoting this: how hard in those early days was our shell of obstinance and ignorance. Kitty Devi spent almost 50 years with Baba. Only Baba's infinite patience could succeed in his work of shifting our awareness to himself. For Baba, it was a ceaseless struggle. Otherwise, would he ever have said of us, "You are hard nuts to crack"? Through it all, Baba's magnetic love was pulling us ever closer. This shifting of consciousness was noticeable not only in his work with us, but also in his work with the must, the poor, and the masses. No activity was left out. No opportunity was lost for the masses. Sorry, no activity was left out. No opportunity was lost for contact. To quote Baba's words, every one of you is in one form or another the divine manifestation. You are all in me. I am in you all. The only way to realize God is through love. Love for God and love for another. Thus, he tells us that the shifting of consciousness can be done through love, a selfless, giving love. And I believe we read about selfless love in this particular chapter. So I'm going to again re-quote Baba's words here. Every one of you is in one form or another the divine manifestation. You are all in me, I am in you all. The only way to realize God is through love, love for God and love for one another. So my comment on this is, what is love? How to love Baba? We say we have to love Baba, but please explain, how do you love Baba? Is it based on your relationship with people? Is it about reading Baba's literature and secluding oneself and not meeting anybody? So every one of us is loving Baba in our own way. But the point here is also that there are different forms of love, whether it is through Karma Yoga, Bhakti Yoga, Jnana Yoga, or Raja Yoga, or a permutation combination of all those different yogas, where we need love to accomplish these things. Pure love is something that is rare. I mean, pure Bhakti Yoga is not for everyone's, and it's all based on sanskaras. As we know from Ramana Maharishi and Nisargadatta Maharaj or Tukaram, there was a Bhakti movement, we know, from 5th century AD to 15th century or 17th century, where through the Bhakti movement, many drop souls attained God realization. Today, we are living in the 21st century and people are asking all kinds of questions. But definitely we understand that anything in life, whether it is material life or spiritual life, love is the oxygen, is the medium through which you accomplish or succeed in your practical life. So one more paragraph. On this theme, I recall Erich saying that since love and faith are gifts of grace and perfect obedience is not within the grasp of any one of us, then all we can do is to try and please Baba. And Baba, responding to our need to know how to please, gave us 3 ways in which we could do this. In so doing, we would grow in our love for him. Note how positive these 3 ways are. Number 1, think of things you would not hesitate to think in my presence. Number 2, speak words that you would not hesitate to speak in my presence. Number 3, act and do things that you would not hesitate to act and do in my presence. To these, I would add a later statement of Baba's. Think of me Remain cheerful in all your trials, and I am with you, helping you. It is sometimes said that there are few disciplines that Baba has stressed for the spiritual path, but could we find a stricter inner discipline than these 4 points with their emphasis on obedience? Jai Baba.
Good, Kama. You explained very well. You took longer time than I did, and you objected me to talk.
Jai Baba. Thank you, Raviji. Thanks, Kama, for the great session. Kama, I think the linkage to love was beautiful, very insightful. All the references that you made are definitely, I mean, I keep my ears very close to the earplug. I push it in and want to hear every word. But maybe we can, I was just thinking while you were reading that maybe the summary also, we limit it to 5 minutes or something each chapter. And sometimes the learning is also through exchange. I had thoughts crossing my mind when you were reading, when you were going through, Purna Vairagya, Tivra Vairagya, and love. But we are out of time now. So, and to get back those thoughts, I have to wait till tomorrow. So interaction is also very important, I think. So let's
I agree.
keep discussing.
I agree with you. I think we should confine our talk to the topic we are talking about. We're talking about the conditions of happiness. I think that's what we have to confine to. I read a lot of books. I can talk about for a half an hour about this. I think we have to confine.
Raviji,
Excuse
I would
me,
think
there was
no
a topic
perfect
about
format.
detachment in part 1. We talked about desirelessness and pure selfless love. So I don't understand what is this conditions of happiness. Conditions of happiness need to be understood through understanding what is detachment and what is love. Excuse me. And Mr. Ravi, I have nothing personal against you, but
Jai
let's
Baba,
be
Jai
very
Baba,
clear.
Jai
I'm
Baba.
sorry that I have to say that. I can't help myself. So I have to say that you ramble sometimes. I do ramble. So I'll keep my comments to 5 minutes, as Sunil said. Thank you and apologies if I've hurt your feelings. Jai Baba.
Let's follow that.
Let's
follow to the
yeah. Let's moderate to ensure that nobody rambles. That's all. I think both of you are accepting that. So anyway, quick logistical point. We are almost at the end of the book. So tomorrow we will finish Discourses. The last chapter is what is left, I think. And then we will have to figure out what we do next. So just some food for thought, please think, and then we will discuss when we meet tomorrow. Obviously, yeah.
I would like to recommend Listen Humanity if anybody.
I have been, thanks to you and Sunil telling me about it, I've been listening to it on the audio. It's fantastic. I was thinking of the same, but let's open it up and let's decide.
Because that
it's a very charming book. It's not learning, but it's just all about reliving that experience, which I found to be very, very magical. I'm not absolutely sure of the relevance from a learning standpoint, I must admit. But it's a very nice, charming book. I don't deny it. So we'll open it up. We'll discuss and pick one of them. It's very light reading, Listen Humanity, but it's very stylistically very powerful and full of Baba's love in every word. And it's in audio form. And Nomita pointed it out, and I've been using it in my workouts. It's a fascinating book. So, but
I support you. I support all of you guys. I think Listen Humanity is a great book. It gives a comprehensive gist of all the things we read in God Speaks and Discourses together. And Baba gave a very, in a different mode, he gave the same truths he talked about, but we get a different perspective. At Bombay Group, Jimmy Modi has been reading it. and I've been attending last couple of years his reading, and it's a very nice book to take up and read on that. Yes, I
Jai
support
Baba,
that.
looks like we have a consensus.
Already,
Uh,
yes, looks like that. Yeah, yeah.
Jai Baba.
Karthik, you
That's good.
referred to an audio format of the book.
I will
Can
share
have-
the link. Yes, I will share the
Yes.
link. Yes. I've
Mamaji,
been struggling to download it and put it on the Teams. Unfortunately, I've not been able to. So the only way it works is you play it off the browser, but that works pretty well. It works pretty well, and the audio quality is brilliant. It's Don Stevens reading, so you'll enjoy it.
Karthik, I think you're referring to mehermedia.com. That's the website.
Yes, that's the one. Yes, that's the
Even
one.
I'm using it. I'm also using it. That's brilliant.
Yeah.
Jai Baba, so brilliant reading today. There's nothing else. Let's close it for today with Jai Baba and love
Jai
for
Baba.
Baba. And
Jai Baba to
meet
all.
again tomorrow. Jai Baba.
Jai
Baba,
Baba to
everybody.
all.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Jai Baba.
Jai Baba.
Jai Baba.
Jai Baba.